Alrighty, we are ready to dive into this offseason and prepare for the 2037 campaign. First things first, I did want to mention that I already started a little bit of this offseason, did a little bit of recording, didn't really like how it came out, so we kind of just scrapped that and we're just going to re-go over everything. But one of the things that I did change in that recording is the fact that our new owner was meddling with involvement. So you can see here it says that he set aside $10 million for player development, which is obviously much, much less than I've ever spent in player development. I had never actually experienced this before. I've never actually had a team with an owner who had their involvement as meddling. So when I went over to here, all of this was grayed out, and I could not edit any of this. And this development budget was set down to $10 million, which you can see is $3.5 million less than the baseline. Could not do anything about it, so I just made the executive decision to say, fuck that. I'm not dealing with that shit. We're leaving this shit on hands off. I went into commissioner mode, ticked that on real quick, put this on hands off. Everything else is exactly how it was when Mike Moreno here, Artie's fake son, got generated. Everything else is the same. We just changed the involvement to be hands-off because I'm not dealing with some shit where we're going to have our player development slashed down to $10 million. No, we're not doing that. As far as the other things that have happened so far here in the offseason, our fan loyalty has increased to good loyalty, which is good, for lack of a better word. I could have sworn it was already... Maybe, I guess it wasn't, because I definitely don't remember this all being teal here, but yeah. We'll take that. Good fan loyalty here in Anaheim. Ben Joyce failed to meet his vesting option, which we were planning on happening. He's going to be entering free agency. And then Chris Croxton, we decided to accept his team option, which was just a very cheap, just under $1 million. He was quite good for us in 70 innings pitched this year, so I figured, hey, let's bring him back, see if we can have him be a part of our bullpen once again. But as far as what our team is going to be looking like here heading into the offseason, the pitching staff-wise, I don't really think this is going to change. I think we're pretty set 1 to 5, Lampkin, Flynn, Pimentel, Hoskins, and then Sosa. If anything changes, it's I get one starter and push Sosa to the bullpen, and then one of these guys gets pushed down the totem pole. But that's not really a top priority. If something lines up that I like, I would not mind doing that. But I think this is a very solid 1 through 5, and I don't really think we need to mess with that too much. The bullpen, Terrada's going to be back because he came over from the quote-unquote NPB, and we gave him a 2-year deal. So obviously, he has 3 years of team control before he hits arbitration, and then the rest of it is arbitration. This is his 3rd year of what would have been on league minimum if he was like a traditional prospect, but he's not. So he has an auto-renew contract at $12 million. Now, obviously not ideal to have a 35-year-old. He'll be closer to 36 by the time the season starts, if not already 36. He'll be 36 for the majority of this upcoming season. He's fragile, coming off a season where he had multiple serious injuries, a torn back muscle, and then bone chips in his elbow. Not ideal there, but he is a very good pitcher overall. He's a key part of our bullpen, and it's only going to be for 1 year, and then obviously once he hits arbitration, then we'll be able to trade him. Because for whatever reason, I don't remember giving him a no-trade clause, but I guess he has one, so we're not able to extend him, or we're not able to trade him, so we're just going to deal with him on the roster for a year. You know, he's a really good reliever. We might as well have him on the roster. So he's going to be at the back end of our bullpen here with Brad Caraway, who's going to return, Shamar, who we'll get into it a little bit here in a second, John Pelnar, who broke out as like a big stuff guy for us this past season, Dan Brannick, who's up to a 50 overall and is just really solid overall, good control, good stuff, good 2-pitch mix with a decent sinker and changeup to boot to go with it. Juan Campos will be back as a member of our bullpen, so will Dusty Spainhauer, as well as Chris Croxton, who we just talked about. And then as like next tier options, is Zach Mahoney, who we traded for last offseason, and Juan Machua. Now, both of Machua and Mahoney don't have any options. Mahoney, I'm like 99.9% sure would not get claimed, which is like not the end of the world anyways if he does, because he's just like a depth guy. Machua, he might get claimed, but he's also a guy who we might end up putting on the staff to start the season, see how he does, because he's just been really good in the minors, and it feels like I should reward the guy. Like, he put up this insane season, then another good season, then he came up and was like, okay, and then he had another insane season in AA, and then last year he was in AAA, and he was pretty decent in Salt Lake, which is where pitchers go to die. So, I do hope he can stick around and not get claimed, but if he does, it's not the end of the world, but I would like to see if we can possibly squeeze him into the bullpen somewhere. And then, of course, you have Luis Aguirre, who we picked up at last year's deadline, who's an option for us as like a depth guy. And then Ben Anderson and Ben Joyce. The Bens are going to be hitting free agency here, both expiring contracts, who we picked up at the deadline from the Mariners. But as far as the bullpen, I feel like we have a lot of guys in our system, as well as a couple other guys in the minors with this mix here, that I feel like is a good mix for us, and I don't really think we need to go out and like pay for a reliever or anything. If anything, if any of these guys are not going to be on this team, it's probably Shamar, but even then I'm leaning towards just bringing him back for another year of arbitration, because he's only projected to make like 2.2, and it's like he's a key piece of our bullpen, so I figured why not? Let's bring him back, see how he does. He's been solid for us the past 2 seasons. He's had a down year before, but overall, he's definitely been better than he's been bad. He's been a solid reliever for us. I just feel like, it would be a shame to just let him walk for just a little bit, just $2 million. Who cares? We're not going to be big spenders this offseason anyways. So it's just like we might as well retain guys who have roles on this team, and Shamar is one of those guys. Now, when we talk about the hitters, the lineups, that's where things start to get a bit odd, because we're going to have to do some shuffling this season. Catcher is Haggy and Cuevas. That's pretty much set. Aquino is obviously first base. And then it's this infield and corner outfield situation. And even really it's just second, third, short, left, center, right, where we don't know what the hell's going on. We got a bunch of weird stuff going on. The main reason is because Ellie De La Cruz cannot play shortstop anymore. He's coming off a just dreadful season at shortstop for us. Obviously, he's wrecked. It's not great. We're expecting him to at max play like 100 games per season. We have him signed for 2 more seasons after this. Now, both of them are ticked down from this $36 million he made last year. But still, you don't want a guy who's going to be getting hurt that much to be getting paid that much, especially when he's now a third baseman and not a shortstop. So hopefully he can play a decent amount of games, but Ellie is definitely not our shortstop anymore. And that forces us into a situation where Tiziano has to play second. Guadarrama is probably our best bet to play shortstop in organization, which I'm not opposed to because he's very good defensively, and I think he could be a decent-ish hitter, like your 8-9 hitter, which I'm not opposed to. And then we've got Suzuki in left, who I like. He's pretty set. But then it's like Canalate, we need him to finally do something. He's just put up these 3 years of just dreadful hitting performances, despite me constantly talking about how this profile should be able to be at least like a 95 WRC plus hitter. I'm not expecting this guy to be an MVP candidate. I'm just expecting him to be like a hitter who can hold his own at the major leagues. And so far, he has not proven he can do that. He can prove that he plays a ridiculous center field, but he can't do anything besides that. Now, we are probably going to roll with him as our center fielder this year because we don't really have another option. We'll get into Fletcher Clancy here in a minute. He's still on the roster as of right now, but he is arbitration eligible at $2.6 million, and a guy coming off a season where he was so bad that he spent the year in AAA, and he wasn't even really playing every day in AAA. He has the 75 range, he's got the speed, he's got the versatility in the outfield, but we're probably moving on from Fletcher Clancy, if I had to imagine, getting something for him in return. So Canalate penciled in at center field as of right now. Suzuki, left field. And then this is where things start to get a bit interesting. Since we have this whole logjam at second and third base right now, Huzzy is probably going to be our backup infielder at first, second, and third this year, mixing in a decent amount, spotting De La Cruz games, spotting Tiziano, and probably not so much Aquino games, but definitely making sure that Ellie does not have to play constantly, and we're getting him rests and maybe trying to keep him as healthy as possible. So Huzzy's going to get a decent amount of plate appearance. He's not going to get like 600 plate appearances, but he's going to get a decent amount. And then plus, if Ellie gets hurt, Huzzy just slots right in. But then we also have Fetchko, who I think has a role on this team because he's a captain. He's been a solid bench player for us. I like his role as a bench player. So we have to figure out how to get him on the team. And then Padilla is going to be playing right field for us, even though he's coming off a season where he was quite bad in right field. Who knows? Maybe a full year of right field will make that a little bit better. But, he has the 80 error at third base, whereas in the outfield, it's definitely all arm and just very mediocre range and error. But, he's got a 55 potential in right field. We'll also probably try to improve it through the dev lab in the second set of dev lab, which we'll get into the first set here in a bit. But yeah, Suzuki and Padilla are going to be the corners. Canalate's penciled in at center. Soto is obviously DH. And then for our backup outfielders, it's probably going to be Piscotty or McGowan in the corners, because I've kind of soured on Astorga, who I think only has like 1 more year of team control. He has 2 more years of team control. So maybe, so the thing about Astorga is that I like his bat. I think his bat is very playable. He was good offensively for us this season in the limited time he had, but he was hurt a ton. He had a ton of nagging injuries. 5-week oblique strain, 2-month fractured hand, knee soreness, intercostal strain 3 weeks. It was just nagging injury after nagging injury after nagging injury. And then on top of that, he can't really defend. He can't really play a corner. He's fragile. I think, 1 season of Astorga was probably enough, and I think we're probably already looking to move on from him, to be honest. So that would mean that Piscotty or McGowan ends up being our backup corner outfielder this season, which I'm fine with either of them. It's just a matter of who's going to be their backup center fielder, because right now we're definitely not going to bring back Brunson at $6 million through arbitration. We're going to trade him for something. Fletcher Clancy probably not coming back at that price point. So we're going to have to find ourselves a guy who can spot us games in center field, even if he's in AAA for the majority of the time. And if something ever happens, then he can slot in. But Canalate is going to be the guy, most of the time in center field. Everything goes well. I've also thought about the possibility of trading somebody from this logjam in the infield, because I feel like as much as I like Fetchko, maybe he could net us something, and it's not like, obviously he has the captain work ethic, he has the captain personality class, he's got the high work ethic. I like his profile a lot, but at the same time, it's not like we're team chemistry. It's not like we have a lack of leaders on this roster. Now this is with the before everybody leaves, so Bowsley is a AAA guy, he's definitely not going to be on the Major League roster to start, so he's a leader, but he's in AAA. Anaya is probably our third catcher at this point, so he's probably not going to be on this leader list, but still that leaves Suzuki, Croxton, Huzzy, Padilla, Cuevas. Yasavage is not an expiring free agent, but he's on the team. He's coming off a torn UCL, partially torn UCL. That's another thing. I totally forgot about Trey Yasavage. So Yasavage is probably actually going to be the 5th starter, assuming that he comes back and his stamina doesn't tank below 35. If it does, then Yasavage is in the bullpen. But if not, then, Yasavage will be our 5th starter. But you can see here, we got a lot of dudes in the leader category, so it's not like we're going to be we're not going to be hurting too bad if we decide to trade away Fetchko. But I don't really think I want to trade away Fetchko. So I think I'd rather just have depth, especially since we have Ellie and his wrecked injury proneness. So I think I'd rather just have as much depth as we possibly can at the infield positions. especially since Fetchko is only projected to make like 2.6 million this season, and Huzzy is only projected to make 3 million. So it's not like we're gonna paying a huge amount of money for guys who are going to play roles on this team. Now, as far as the player development lab right now, here are our 8 guys we're rocking with here to start this season with the first round of dev lab guys. Number 1, Ernesto Pimentel. We are trying to improve his durability. He, I think, is a very, very key piece of this team's future. I think he can be an absolute monster for us in the rotation. I would like to see this fragility go up. Now, he's a guy who hasn't had a serious injury. Once again, I talk about I don't like how this game really just nicks people into the fragile injury proneness just very, very easily. It's very annoying to me because it's kind of like how in like Madden and in other sports games, the base roster is always super inflated ratings wise. So then people start getting like 6-7 years into a franchise and they're like, why are all these guys bad? And it kind of has that vibe to it with OOTP, where it's like when you have like the base roster and you're first starting out, all those guys tend not to be like getting fragile after picking up like 3 injuries that are all like very nagging, like 1 to 3 day injuries. But for whatever reason, it feels like once you get into these years where the majority of players are fake, then you start getting all these injury proneness guys who like they start off normal and then they'll just get like 2 back stiffnesses that are like 2-day injuries, and it's like boom, just like that, they're fragile. Now I know I could come into here and change this based on, my thought of how that is. I could come in here and say, like, I don't know, long injury would be low and short injury could be, like, realistic. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something like that. I think we'll just keep rolling with what we've been doing, because it's not like this changes how fragile they are. My problem with the injuries is not how many injuries there are, it's the fact that guys become fragile too easily. But anyways, back to the dev lab. Pimentel, we're trying to get his durability up. Kanalate, we are once again throwing in for gap power because we want this gap power to be ticked up. We would like that very much. We need his bat to do something. Austin Anglesey is an international free agent from Australia we signed back in 2032. He is an absolute freakazoid defensively. You can see here 75 range at the shortstop position. And not only that, he also has 75 range in the outfield. So he is an absolute demon on probably the 2 hardest positions to play. 3 if you're including, obviously catcher is up there too. So like out of the 3 premier positions in baseball, he can play 2 of them at a Gold Glove level. And the bat potential is something to where like it's a decent bat to go along with this glove. Now, obviously, I see that he is fragile, but yet again, he is another guy who is fragile despite really never having too many serious injuries. Like he had this fractured thumb like right away when he first started playing pro ball. But then like 2035, he had 0 injuries, and then last year all he had was a 4-day hyperextended knee and then dizziness. Like, I don't know. It's weird. But anyways, we're trying to tap into his power because we would like to have some good bat go along with this glove. Because as you can see here, his bat in the minor leagues has been lacking. We would like to see his bat start to develop, improve a bit, see how that goes. And then we also have David Guadarrama. We're trying to improve his power as well, generate bat speed. We'd like to see him as a very good defensive shortstop, kind of tick up this bat a little bit, make him be a little bit more of a power threat, and make him be a little bit more of a better hitter to have in the lineup. I don't expect him to be a middle-of-the-order guy, obviously, but if we could turn him into like a 15-20 home run guy, that would be very cool. Then it's just a bunch of relievers here, a bunch of pitchers in general. John Pelnar, we're trying to increase his pitch movement. He is a nasty stuff guy, really good 3-pitch mix here. If we could tap into a little bit of this control and make him even better, I would love to see that. He's got the adaptability and work ethic. Hopefully that will work in his favor. We also have Juan Campos. We're trying to improve his control. You can see here it's got a little bit of potential. We'd like to tap into that. Then We also threw on Jorge Sosa for the movement because, as you see, he's got a little bit of movement potential. If we could possibly make him a bit better of a starter option for us. I already think he had a decent season for us in that fifth starter role last year. If we could get that even a little bit better, and like I said, he'll probably be in the bullpen this season with Savage coming back, hoping that Savage does not tank his stamina. But Sosa, we have some, injuries happen. Sosa always gives us a quality starting option, and if we could make that even better with some better movement, that would be solid. Adaptability and work ethic works in his favor as well. And then Chris Croxton, going with the easy approach with him, trying to improve his secondary pitch, which is his slider. Has a solid fastball. If we can get this slider above 55, maybe even get this stuff ticked up a little bit as well, that would be fantastic. Alrighty, so the awards have been announced. Let's go over them quickly. In the National League, the MVP, I believe that's back-to-back MVPs. It is indeed Mike Sweeney, the first baseman of the Texas Rangers. Puts up an 8-WAR season last year, puts up a 5-WAR season this year, wins back-to-back MVPs. Runner-up was Nehemiah Dewberry from the Minnesota Twins. And on the American League side of things, Julio Rivera, a new character on the Nationals that we were not familiar with. Another breakout player on this team, this insane center fielder they have. The Nats, they've got themselves a squad over there in D.C., winning MVP with a 6-WAR season, 35 home runs. And then Ortega and Bobby Coleman were the runner-ups. And we were aware of Trujillo. We weren't even aware of Ortega. And we might have been vaguely aware of Ortega. So he's had back-to-back really good seasons. So yeah, the Nationals, they're really, really good. And then the National League Cy Young winner was indeed Mike Hannibal. That was pretty obvious. He's been dominating the statistics leaderboards. The American League Cy Young of the Year was Jesus Ramirez of the Oakland A's. Chad Brumlow, the guy who dominated us in the DS for the D-backs, was the runner-up. And then Art Foley was also there as the third guy. So, and then they also have Carsefini in here, or Carsefni in here. A lot of D-backs in the pitching side of things. Very shocking to me that Ernesto Pimentel did not get any Rookie of the Year votes and ends up going to Luis Alvarado of the Diamondbacks. I would have expected that he would have won it because he put up a really good season. But, I feel like Pimentel deserved rookie votes. He had a really good season for a rookie. He had a 2-WAR season in his first big league season. I don't know how that doesn't even get you a single vote, but apparently it doesn't. Like, this guy got one single vote. Wow, that gets you one vote? Okay, well, maybe Pimentel doesn't deserve a vote. Despite our team scoring the most runs in the American League, we did not have a single Silver Slugger on this year's award list here. We did, however, have a Gold Glove. Chris Aquino. Now you can call him Gold Glove or Chris Aquino here. At first base, his 80 grade first base, actually had a positive ZR there this year after last year being a negative ZR and a negative ZR here. But yeah, this year, basically close to a full WAR ZR at first base gets him a Gold Glove. So congratulations to Chris Aquino. And then Ben Anderson did indeed get Reliever of the Year votes. He finished third, split between us and the Mariners. And then they also had another guy, Bubba Parks. Not Bubba Sparks. Bubba Parks won Reliever of the Year for the Seattle Mariners, a lefty out of McKendree University. They claimed him off waivers from Arizona in what season? In 2034. So Arizona is just a pitching machine. They're a pitching factory out there. Just a quick little check-in while I'm looking at guys I possibly want to offer a minor league deal to, and I found this guy who is like the ideal third, fourth catcher on a roster. This Venezuelan bat is whatever. It's what you expect from a guy who's like a depth catcher. 75 framing, 80 blocking, 55 arm, and to go with that, he's also a spark plug personality class, which we'd love to see. He's spent multiple years now in indie ball. But not only does he have these insane catching ratings, but he also has a 65 infield range with a 70 error and a 65 turn DP. Who is this guy? All right, folks, we have finished the offseason. It is 2037 opening day, and we are ready to embark on the season. But before we do that, as always, we're going to go through the rundown of what happened in this offseason and then preview what the roster is looking like heading into the 2037 campaign. So, we started this offseason off with a couple trades. Guys that I mentioned that we were looking to move off of. First one being Chase Brunson here. We shipped him and Trey Savage off to the Texas Rangers in return for some younger, controllable pieces. Chase Brunson, like I said, 31-year-old, almost 32. Looks like his center field dropped, so that's even a bigger reason why. Obviously, that happened after we traded for him, but that was his whole value, was the fact that he was able to play center field and be a decent bat. Now he's no longer that, so definitely happy we traded him, and we're not paying him like close to $6 million. His arbitration was $6 million when we were offering him, but it looks like they got him for a little less, but still they have him in AAA making that much money. Anyways, so Chase Brunson, I offered Chase Brunson for Rogers and Hedeman here, and they are both 24-year-old. One's beginning of 24, one's end of 24. Mike Rogers is the younger one. They're both right-handed pitchers, very controllable. They both have like a little less than 1 year of service time. Both of them are like Jorge Sosa types, where they have big stuff, decent movement, really good pitch mix, but their control may keep them from being like starters. And if they are, they're like 4 or 5 starter types, but they could be really, really good multi-inning relievers. But we're also hoping that they develop into starters at the same time. Mike Rogers is one of the guys we picked up here from the Miami area. And Josh Hedeman is from Washington, the state of Washington. Like I said, similar profile, good stuff, movement potential, good pitch mix here with some control. They're both starting the year in AAA, or I think Rogers is in AA. Yeah, we have Rogers in AA because he really hasn't pitched much above A ball, and he struggled in AAA in the majors, and plus we don't want him getting destroyed in AAA. Whereas Hedeman is in AAA because he's pitched in AAA in the Pacific Coast League before, and we're just keeping him there. Both of them, if I had to guess, will be on the roster sooner than later in the major leagues. And then the other piece we picked up was David Silva. This is why they needed another piece from us. He is a very intriguing outfield prospect with some decent gap power, BABIP profile that I'm always talking about. Always going after guys like this. Good speed profile as well with some good defense. You can see here he's never played above AA, so we have him in AAA. But he's interesting enough. He's controllable, has no major league service time. He's got durable injury proneness. I thought he was worth adding onto the deal. And Savage, obviously, maybe he could have been okay, but I don't know. He's already day-to-day. I was just kind of like, let's just get out from under this deal. They want him, so we'll give him to him. And, Trey Savage, maybe he puts something together with them, maybe he doesn't, but no longer on the Angels. The other trade we made was Jorge Astorga. We sent him and just a throw-in guy to the Houston Astros for David Dorta, who is like a similar-ish player, but he has a little bit more contact with some decent power. Can't really play too good of a defense anywhere, but he's like an okay corner infielder who can give you some pop. He's on the bench for us. He's also durable. But he's a guy who, we're probably looking to be more a part of the team once some of the older guys start moving on. And for now, he's more of like a bench piece who's controllable. Now, I will say he has no options, so that's kind of why he's on the Major League roster right now, because I didn't want to waive him. But we did find a spot for him nonetheless. And then we also had this throw-in, not really thrown, but an interesting enough relief prospect from Houston who we have in AA to start the season, Wilson Cienfuegos. Incredible name for a reliever. Incredible name for any sort of pitcher. But he's in the organization now. Then we went ahead in free agency and we decided to pick ourselves up a couple around the edges players and a player who I'm looking at as Trey Savage's replacement, and that is Luke Little. Luke Little has been just this wild development story in this sim where he's been a stud starter for pretty much his entire, maybe not stud, but he's been a solid starter pretty much his whole career, and he's had years where he's like really good, and he's still really good. In 2032, he had a 4-WAR season, a 6 R-WAR season. He had another season like that with Chicago in 2028. And he's still pitching very well, even with his second stint, or I guess it's his third stint in no, never mind. Never mind. Yeah, this was when he got traded, but it's his second stint in Chicago. Now he's with us. We signed him to a 1-year deal for $14.5 million. I figured that was worth giving a shot to be a back end of the rotation guy for us. I think this is a pretty damn good back end of the rotation guy, especially when he's putting up numbers like these recently. So we're rolling the dice with Luke Little here in our rotation. He is not fragile, so that is definitely good to see there. Excited to see what he can do for us. And then we also went and picked up a couple other edge of the roster players, one of them being Keon Johnson, who's currently hurt. We're going to have to make a decision on him soon when he comes back from this injury in 2 days. He got hurt in spring training, but he's a guy who was an indie ball, just tearing it up last year after Miami let him go from their AAA, from their organization in 2035, tore it up in indie ball, and then we signed him to a deal in the offseason. He's a very interesting player. Captain personality type, high adaptability work ethic, really good speed profile, can play a bunch of different positions very well. He's got 65 range in the infield and the outfield. Decent enough bat, especially when you combine it with this glove and this speed profile. I thought he was intriguing, so we signed him in the offseason. But like I said, we're going to have to make a decision on him once he comes back because we've got kind of a jam on the roster right now. And then we also brought back Fletcher Clancy. We did not offer arbitration to him because he wanted like $2.6 million. He walked into free agency, and we ended up bringing him back on a deal for $1.3 million for a year. So he is in AAA, just, down there as a depth center field option for us. Felt like there wasn't really any better options out there to be like a depth center fielder for us, so he's back in the organization. I should also mention that our first-round pick from 2 years ago, Mike Odoms, our supplemental first-round pick, he's getting elbow surgery because, of course, that's just what happens when you're a pitcher in the Angels organization. You get elbow surgery because why wouldn't you? So Mike Odoms, unfortunately, his career is going to be delayed. And as far as what our roster is looking like here to start this 2037 season, the 1 to 5 is going to be Josh Flynn, Justin Lampkin. Usually it would be Lampkin 1 and Flynn 2. I flipped them around this season. 1, because Lampkin most recently pitched in spring training, so he'll be ready to go for the next day, but right now he is not ready to go, so he's going to pitch the second game. Plus, you can see here he went down a little bit here in this offseason, entering what will be mostly his age 33 season. His current and potential movement went down, and so did his overall ratings, which is definitely not ideal. We have him signed through 2039, but it's really just this year and next year, and then 2039 is a team option with a very cheap buyout compared to this amount. So he's starting to decline. We'll have to see how he keeps performing, but definitely not a great sign. He's been bumped down to number 2. Josh Flynn, coming off his worst season with us, is now listed as number 1 guy. But I feel like we have a very deep staff, but maybe you don't have that legit number 1 ace. So Josh Flynn, he's getting the opening day start for us. Hopefully he can have a solid year. Then there's Ernesto Pimentel. We know about him. Then it's Luke Little. Then it's Mike Hoskins. While in the bullpen, it's Terada and Sosa. As the stoppers, we want to make him 7th in close game. And then the setup men, both 6 or later, are Shamar and Dusty. Both 6 or later high leverage secondaries. And then the rest of the bullpen is Pelnar, Campos, and Brannick. We just have so many good controllable relievers that we have a bunch of guys down in AAA and AA that are going to go up and down throughout the season. And we've just got ourselves like a shuttle going back and forth between here and Salt Lake and Rocket City because it's a video game and we can send guys from Alabama to Anaheim just like that. And now taking a look at the lineups, very similar to last year. Juan Soto DHing, Ellie De La Cruz at 3rd, Tiziano at 2nd, Aquino at 1st, Padilla in right, Suzuki in left, Haggy catching, Guadarrama short, and Canalate is the center fielder. where Aiden Huzzy is getting time at second base and third base off the bench. So is Dorda at third base. He's also the backup first baseman. And then Piscotty is the main backup corner outfielder, with Flannery being the backup center fielder, because we just don't really have any other options, because both him and Piscotty are not great options there. But that's just what we have. I guess I'll throw Piscotty in as like the secondary one, because why not? But that is our situation right now. We're going to go into the season. You know, maybe we do some patchwork things around the edges, maybe pick up some waiver claims or something as I see them. But right now, that is what we are going into the season with. So let's just take a look at what the predictions are. The Nationals projected to win 98 games. They have a really good squad. That's not surprising. The Yankees behind them. We are projected to win 77 games, but I believe we were projected to win 70-something games last year, and we won 98. So the Giants, D-backs, and A's are all projected to win 90+, and then the Mariners with 89, us behind them with the Dodgers, Rockies, and Padres. We're on the National League side of things. The Guardians are projected to win the Great Lakes Division with the Twins behind them, and then the Miami Marlins, the defending champions, are projected to win 102 games because they are absolutely insane. I totally forgot to go over the program, so we're going to cut this in real quick. Ernesto Pimentel, in the first batch of programs, he did have some success on his strength and conditioning program. He's actually gone up to a normal now. So you can see here, no longer fragile for Ernesto. Very good to see there. Unfortunately, Canalate still did not improve his gap power. Austin Anglesey did improve his bat speed a bit. So that's good to see. He's going to be in Double-A to start this season. John Pelmar did not improve anything. Neither did Guadarrama. Juan Campos had an outstanding improvement on his control. It says that his potential and his current went up by his potential went up by less than 5. His current went up by 5. So he has that 55 control now, which is good to see. Jorge Sosa also improved. It said he had a successful program, but there were no noticeable changes. I've never seen that before, but, you know, I guess, I don't know, maybe he's like in a better spot to improve normally. But Jorge Sosa did have a successful program, but did not have any noticeable changes. Chris Croxton did improve his secondary pitch. His slider stuff went up, as well as his potential slider stuff. You can see here he's starting the year in AAA. He's another one of these guys who will be up in the big leagues at some point this season, especially with this slider bump. And then when it comes to the second set of DevLab programs, which are all defense guys, Osamu Suzuki, we tried to improve his left field. He had a poor time at that. Fortunately, he had no notable changes, so he did not get worse, but he did not get better either. Juan Padilla was not able to improve. So I tried Juan Padilla. It did not let me improve his right field, which is what I wanted to do, because I guess he barely played more third base last year than right field. No, he played more right field, and he's listed at right field, and for whatever reason, it would not let me improve his right field, only his third base. So we tried to go, hey, maybe learn new position, and I was like, you already know how to play first, second, third, short, left, and right, so maybe it'll teach him how to play center, and maybe he'll get like a boost to his outfield range or something, because that sometimes happens when guys learn new positions. So I tried to do that. It did not happen. Then we tried to make David Silva be even more of a solid center fielder. He's 60 center field, 70 in the corners. So we tried to improve his outfield defense even more to the point where he's like a legit center fielder, but he was not able to do so. Steven Piscotty did improve his left field defense, which is good to see. Steve Hagge improved his catching, which is also good to see. Bobby McGowan improved his left field defense. And then Tiziano improved his second base defense. And then Chris Aquino had a big, outstanding improvement at third base. So all of a sudden, he's looking like a guy who could be our takeover for Ellie once he leaves the team and Aquino moves from first to third to play a bit of a more premier position, and that gives us the first base spot to put in other guys and possibly even open up the DH spot once Juan Soto leaves. So yeah, Chris Aquino, just a bit more positional versatility now for him.